Welcome to the Marketing and Mindset Podcast, where we share expert tips for the mind, body, and soul to help your business thrive. Tune in for free marketing or mindset expert training to boost your business. Hello, welcome to Marketing and Mindset. I am so excited today. We're actually talking on a topic that we haven't talked much about. We've done a lot of marketing, we've done a lot of mindset, and this is something that I think that is important for any and all business owners to really pay attention to, which is our bodies. And so today we have Tracy Desjardins, who is a national board certified health and wellness coach. So I have an expert here who is going to talk to us about how to find peace and freedom when it comes to food and our bodies without restrictive diets. Now, if you're like me, I've never been happy with my weight like my whole life. And so dieting and exercising, and there's so much challenge to staying healthy, especially when you're a busy business owner. Oddly enough, now I'm actually dieting and exercising better than I ever have, but it can be really challenging to do this and not feel deprived and, stressed out about it. And you can't eat what everybody else can eat and things like that. So I'm excited to have this conversation and learn about it. So Tracy, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you could please just introduce yourself and let us know who you are, what you do, and sort of how you got started with this.
Yeah. Hi, Vanessa, and everyone listening. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be on the Marketing and Mindset podcast. And so I'm Tracy Desjardins. I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach. I'm also the international best-selling author of the Diet-Free Diva. And I would love to just take a moment to answer what you're asking about how I got into this work and all of that. So everything you said, by the way, Vanessa, when you were discussing about yourself, my heart started beating because these are topics that I so love to discuss. And I work exclusively with women. So my story is I was born in 1970 and I struggled with my weight, I'd say in elementary school, because I loved sweets. I loved sugar and I loved them more than anybody else in my family or like in my class. And I started to notice that I had this insatiable desire for more all the time. And I was embarrassed by that from a very early age. I do remember. It was kind of a joke in my family. And I started to use sugar a lot to manage feelings, to fill up so many needs that I had as a child. And as a result, I started to put on weight. And back in the 70s, it was, they only had a certain section of clothing called Pretty Plus clothing for, we'll call it chubby girls. And that is what I was labeled. And I wore the Pretty Plus clothes. And there was a time when I didn't really even care. They were comfortable. They had elastic bands. I had a big personality. And it didn't even really faze me. I had so many friends and I had this free spirited aspect of me that went dark as soon as I turned about 11, 12 and the hormones start shifting. And all of a sudden, the Pretty Plus clothes were not acceptable. And I needed to do something about my body fast. When I entered, middle school, and you hear what boys are talking about, and I needed to get thin because I was told, my mom believed that thin was in and she was trying to help me and protect me based on what she knew. And she didn't really understand my challenges with food. And I just loved food, especially sugar. So, Vanessa, my problem with sugar blew up after I started restrictive dieting for weight loss, starting at the ginger age of 12. And I fought this diet, restrict, eat something off plan, go crazy, what the hell, binge. I did that for over 3 decades of my life. And I did this in shame. And I thought, this is the way. I need to just try harder next time. I really believed that I just needed to start over again on Monday on the same restrictive diet. And that took me through college, high school, college. My weight went up with this binging. And I was blessed to not have a classified eating disorder, but I was one of those girls that used food for emotional reasons. And I used a lot of food and I was ashamed of it. So there was no help for people like me who had that problem.
Right.
And I'm also an A-certified fitness professional, believe it or not. And I loved aerobics, and I loved music, and I loved people. So I started teaching aerobics. I was able to manage my weight a little bit there. I thought, well, I'll just try to out-exercise, these binges. Well, that only took me so far. And then I started to feel sick in my body and my mind and my spirit. It took away from the attention that I had as a wife, as a mom, And I raised my kids with this secret shame of using food to cope, numb, and medicate myself when life got rough, things got stressful, full-time working mom, crazy. And I didn't have any tools until I hired my own coach and discovered at my rock bottom, I can't keep doing this. Hormonally, I was going nuts. And I got some help, and I discovered the tools that I was missing, that I were missing my whole life. And when I discovered that, I had to put it in writing. The creative side of me came out. I've been wasting all of my energy on this fight with food and body. That's a lot of energy that I spent. And I thought, I want to live my life on my terms now. And I transferred my role as a fitness professional into a health and wellness coach, promoting freedom from restrictive diets for weight loss and helping women find peace and freedom with food, body, and self on your trusted and sustainable terms. That, guess what, will work for you ongoing. And there's a process. We have to unlearn that diet mentality. And this is the work that I love to do from my heart.
I love that. I mean, and that's such a good story. And, it's funny that you talked about, your mom trying to help you, talking about you being thin and stuff. My mom is the same, and I come from a Hispanic family. And we actually, and it sounds terrible, but the adults will actually nickname you based on how skinny or fat you are. And it's supposed to be a cute pet name, I know. But like, I grew up kind of hearing it. And if I was skinny, I would be flaquita, which means like little skinny one. And if I was chubby, I'd be gordita, which means like little chubby one. And like, it didn't really hit me until I got older. Like, wow, I've been literally having someone call me like chubby because I was a chubby kid like my whole life, like that can't be good, for your mental health. But I think culturally, it's not something that's ever been something that has been changed or talked about. But that's just how it was. And so like, even with my mom, she's always been like concerned about my weight, about as much as I've been, for some reason. And I think mostly she just wants me to be healthy. But it's funny that you mentioned that you see skinny as health, and then if you're not skinny, you're almost labeled as unhealthy, which isn't good at all. But that's interesting that you said that. I wanted to ask you, just for anyone who's listening and they don't understand what you mean by finding freedom without restrictive diets, what is the difference between a diet and a restrictive diet? And also, like, aren't all diets restrictive? Are they, just tell us what the differences are there.
So good. So good. Backing up what you said about like moms wanting us to be thin. I mean, ultimately the root is they want us to be successful, and they want to protect us. And unfortunately, we live in a society where thin appears to be that person has her stuff together, and there are problems there. So maybe another episode we could do on like the whole body image thing. But for now, we're here to talk about, you asked me the difference between like diet and restrictive diet. So I love this because I was confused about this for so long. And when I hear diet, I cringe. Like in my book, I talk about deprivation, insanity equals trouble. Those are my words for what diet stands for. Okay. But a diet is actually the foods that you're consuming on a daily basis, like the foods that someone eats. That could be technically considered that is my diet. Like I had eggs and toast for breakfast. That was my breakfast diet for today, like your diet foods that you consume. Where we get into trouble is the restrictive diet specifically for weight loss, because the restrictive rules and regulations, according typically to somebody else telling us how to eat. So we check out of our intuition and we check in with somebody else's rules and regulations for the sole purpose of removing body fat. And we step into this war zone of attack, and we take on the mentality of what foods are good and bad. Mm-hmm. And can equate to our character when we eat a bite of a brownie, or we have something that according to the plan is off plan. That is where we get into the chutes and ladders conundrum of either I'm either on or I'm off. And there's no gray zone in between there. So that restrictive patterning, which cannot be sustained by, rational people, is really the problem.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, like you're speaking to me, because I can so relate to this. And I know a lot of people listening can relate to this. I have been like a diet failure for years, until honestly recently, and I'll share with you what I've done just to hear your perspective on it. But for years, I would get on a diet, a restrictive diet, where like I couldn't have this and I couldn't have that. And if I went out to eat with my family, I would have to order like a salad and watch them all eat good food and things like that. And I mean, I maybe would last a month and then just completely fall off the wagon. I mean, it was like every single time, like it became like a joke, like with my husband, and like, okay, like what diet are you on now? Because it was nothing that I would keep doing consistently because I could not eat like that. Like I just can't, like I need to enjoy things and enjoy foods, and to restrict myself so much was impossible. So, I like that you're saying like that's just not sustainable. It's just not something you can do long term. And what I ended up doing is I did get help, from someone, a dietitian actually, that taught me how to eat in a certain way where I'm not restricting myself from the things I love, but I'm eating things to sort of balance. Like, for example, if I ate a lot of, like, if I wanted to eat carbs, I eat carbs with fiber in it to help balance my blood sugar levels and things like that. So that's what I've been doing, is sort of just found a way to eat healthier.
Yeah.
And make, like, maybe cook the things that I love in a healthier fashion. So I don't know, like, this is just an out of the blue question. Is that somehow how you teach people to sort of eat healthier, and is to still be able to eat the things that they love just in more of a healthier way?
Yes, absolutely. And oh my goodness, I could talk for 8 hours on that topic right there. What I'm loving that you're saying, it sounds like you working with a dietitian helped you tap into your intuition with food that works for you. You mentioned things like blood sugar. You mentioned things like, I believe you said in your own words, something that you can sustain, that like works for you, and I'll just going back, I heard you say you felt something about like diet, like you referenced failure to yourself with the diet. And I would lovingly like to say, Vanessa, the diet failed you. There's nothing wrong with you. No rational person can stick to a deprivation, restrictive diet. Believe me, I've been in fitness for over 30 years, and I hear a lot of people that are on all these diets, and I've seen people gain weight, lose weight. But when the people, I can't tell you one person that went on any type of restrictive eating plan that kept the weight off on that plan. I can't give you one name.
Right.
And, what I coach women to discover is how to find freedom and make peace with all foods, tapping into inner wisdom, getting connected with things like mindfulness, inner wisdom and spirit, and making that connection, because there's too much focus on the food. What can I eat? What can't I eat?
Right.
There needs to be discussion based on what are the thoughts and feelings we're having when we make an eating decision. Are we enjoying what we're about to eat? How is this contributing? How am I going to feel in my body when I eat this? And there is a time and a place for those treats.
Yeah.
And, I love the concept of smart, intuitive, delayed gratification, because if you tell me I can never have birthday cake again, I'm already craving it. And I'm hungry. Like, don't tell me I can never have birthday cake. I'm going to have it tomorrow just because somebody said I can't have it. So all of this stuff has so much to do with the thoughts that we're having, not just about the food, but about ourselves. And dieting robs us of self-esteem, self-respect, and self-trust, not just with eating, but with other aspects about what we can and can't do in our lives. And that pains me. And that is what prompted me to write the Diet-Free Diva. A diet-free diva is a woman that has found peace and freedom on her terms. I got this with food. I trust my instincts with my appetite. And now I can go do the thing that I love most, like what you're doing. You have this polarizing podcast that's so helpful to people. You're out there doing your thing on purpose with passion. We can't do that when we're at war with food and body, because
Right.
there's so much shame.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's crazy with me. I have a condition called PCOS, which if you've worked with people, you've probably ran into this. And when I first looked for help in a natural way, because I did not want the medicines that the doctors recommend, I wanted to do this naturally. I wanted to be able to balance my hormones. It's a hormone imbalance for anyone who's not familiar. I wanted to be able to balance my hormones naturally. And I looked up like natural ways to balance my hormones. And I found people who were advertising, oh yeah, you could do it. And what would they recommend? No dairy, no gluten, no bread, no rice, no fried foods, no sugar, no meat. Some were like, go vegan, and I was like, whoa, some were like, go vegetarian. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, never mind. For years, I was like, never mind. I cannot balance my hormones naturally because I will not deprive myself of all those things. And, honestly, after years of just like doing it with like birth control to try to manage my hormones and things like that, I've recently discovered someone who's more like you when you're saying like these restrictions are not sustainable, someone who was able to teach you how to eat, the dietitian who, just taught me how to eat and balance my hormones and eat foods that help balance hormones naturally, and eat foods that eat in a way where I can still enjoy birthday cake on occasion, obviously not for breakfast every day and things like that, but be able to have a diet that works for me. But yeah, so like I love that you said that. Like I'm honestly going off on a tangent now. But yes, that's been working for me. And I think that it's great that you help people with that. What I'm struggling with, and I'd love to just hear your opinion on it, is that I grew up in my household, I came from a poor family. We were poor. It was a single mom, 3 kids. We didn't have like help from the government or anything like that. She just worked a whole bunch of jobs to sustain us and to help take care of us. And one of the things that she was really strict on is eating everything that was on her plate. She was not going to throw away food that she worked so hard to put on the table. I was like this since I was a little girl. I was trained to eat everything that I was served from the moment I was born to I was out of the household. And this really trained my brain to overeat in a horrible way. Now with my son, I've never made him finish everything that's on his plate. I tell him to eat until you're full. I don't care if that's half of the plate. I don't care if that's a quarter of the plate, as long as I'm not forcing him to overeat, because I was forced to overeat. And now I overeat. And that is the one thing that I cannot figure out how to fix. I tried taking like supplements that make you feel full before you eat, and it did not stop me from overeating. I think I stretched out my stomach even more because I still had it. It was in here. It's not a stomach thing. You know what I mean? Like it's for some reason, I don't know. So is there anything that you advise for anyone? And this is a little off topic, but when it comes to issues with that, not helping them figure out how to eat healthier?
That is such a great example. And this kind of stuff, just so you know, this shows up with my one-on-one clients. Situations like this, like that is your thing. You grew up in an environment where you were forced for good reasons. Your mom was working so hard to provide food, and there was a scarcity thing. So Vanessa was taught to eat everything on her plate. And your mom probably learned that, generationally, this was passed down. Then I know plenty of people that grew up. I did not grow up like that. I had other things going on there. But that's an example of an old imprinted understanding and reference in your relationship with food that we can definitely rewire.
Right.
And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's a new way that we think about food and we think about our relationship to it. And it's almost like, it's like taking a look at old computer software. And that's rooted in you. And there are ways that we can work towards with conscious awareness, examining thoughts, to rewrite that script.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And believe me, it is, this is the kind of stuff like what I just said about rewriting the food script is the majority of the work that I do with my clients. Let's throw in emotional eating challenges. Let's throw in their sugar challenges. And a lot of us have, I call it what's in our childhood backpack, things we learned as kids that we're going to take the backpack. I talk about this in my book. We're going to dump it out. We're going to clean it out. We're going to put it back on because now we're going to put new tools in that backpack. Like Vanessa does not have to finish everything on her plate anymore.
Right.
You don't. So we work on that and how to rewire that belief into new beliefs about your decisions with food.
Yeah,
And
that's amazing.
can I say something about the PCOS?
Do what?
Can I say something about the PCOS really quick?
Of course, absolutely.
First of all, thank you for sharing that. And I want to be clear for anybody listening in, what I am polarizing in my book is restrictive diets exclusively for weight loss. Now, restrictive diets for health purposes are a whole different jam that is definitely worthy of some serious respect and consideration. And I'm not a dietitian or nutritionist or a doctor or anything like that. I'm a wellness coach. And for those reasons, I believe that, it really comes down to this unique aspect of we are all very, very unique, and we all have different needs nutritionally, emotionally. And that's just another reason why all of these popular diet programs, we can't give them our stamp. I'm going to do that because my neighbor Betty just lost 30 pounds doing intermittent fasting. I'm a
Right.
former binge eating challenged younger person. Intermittent fasting is a nightmare for me. Don't even speak that word to me. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you can get caught up in like the popular stuff based on somebody else's success, but it's all so individualized.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I understand when it comes to having conditions like PCOS, you do have to have some restrictions, a little more than just for weight loss. But even so, for anyone who does have a condition, I believe, at least with my hormonal condition, there's still a way to where you don't feel so deprived, like a way to do it the right way versus just, going vegan, depriving yourself of everything. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I honestly wish I could. There's so many health benefits to that too, and from what I've seen, but it's just not for me. So yeah, everyone is unique, so there's something for everyone. But I might literally reach out to you after this
Oh,
to
yeah.
see how we can rewire my brain, because it's terrible. The overeating is terrible. All right, so let's talk nitty gritty so that our time doesn't run out here.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, how, I guess, what are some steps that people can even take to start becoming healthier, to start breaking free from that like mindset of dieting and the restrictions, and then they feel, contained, like they can't just freely eat and enjoy life when it comes to food. And what are some steps for people to break free from that that you teach and can share with us today?
It's such a big conundrum, and I love it so much. I love helping women discover their own pathway. I call it their own path of excellence with food, body, and self, to find the freedom to never have to diet again. And there's definitely a process. And I know for time reasons here, I don't have time to go into all of it, but I do have an amazing workbook on my website. You can get my book, all those things. But I'd like to share step one. Step one is so important in my book. I share 5 steps. Step one is respecting our food story. And this is something that the dieting industry does not actually want us to examine, which is, and you just shared a little bit of this, Vanessa. I shared a little bit of mine. Anybody listening in, you have yours. You have a food story, something about your past that shows up as clues as to what might be keeping us stuck in our relationship with food today. So I encourage my clients, step one is discover and write your food story. So we go back and we remember our relationship with food, which to a lot of us can sound weird, like the relationship with food. No, I've been like dieting. We've been so checked out from any relationship with food, but it actually is a huge relationship that has details and clues from our past. So that is step one. We can't look at where we want to go before we look back at where we've come and who we are as unique individuals with our history with food. And
Right.
that's a lot of fun to discuss.
Yeah,
Then
no.
a lot of the mindful stuff like values and why, and the inner chatter, the inner critic, and the inner nurturing coach. I talk about that in my book. And these are all wiring exercises that we do to get there.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Anyone listening, definitely take a peek at her book, because yeah, I never thought about rewiring my brain. I mean, I think until now I'm like, oh my gosh, like I tried supplements to help me feel full and different things, like drinking a whole glass, like a bunch of water before eating to see if that would help me, and that did help a little, but I still lack the discipline, I think, to sit there and chug water before I eat, because I just want to eat. But rewiring your brain, is and finding out your food story. I never even realized what an unhealthy relationship, like you do have a relationship with food, so like that's something that people might not even be acknowledging, but it's a thing. And I didn't realize that I had an unhealthy relationship with food when it came to overeating, and it didn't hit me until I had my son, like a full grown adult. I was like 25. And once he started eating as a toddler, and I got to the point where I had to encourage him to eat healthy and eat his vegetables and things like that, where it hit me like, oh my gosh, like this is where it started. Because the first time that I heard him say, like, I'm full, I don't want any more, instinctively, I didn't want to make him eat. Like my brain was like, no, you're not going to force him to eat, And then it's like, it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, okay, good. You're full. You're good. That's fine. Yay. Be full. Like, I want to be full soon too, And so, and that's when I realized, I'm like, man, like my mom always made me eat everything. Like, I'm not going to make my son do that. You know, like that was like the absolute worst. So yeah, knowing what your food story is being the first step. I love that a lot. And we've got a few minutes left. So I'm going to ask you just one more question to get an answer on, because I know anyone who's a business owner like me can get so busy that we don't have time for this one thing that people neglect, and it's exercise. So how do you talk to your clients about exercising? How much exercise do we need realistically? Like for my audience that are like busy business owners, like what's the minimum, honestly? And is there a minimum, or is it just what works for your schedule, or is it any exercise at all? If you could share on that, that'd be amazing.
I could talk for an hour on this topic, and maybe we could do another episode someday about this, because when I hear the word minimum, I go, there are minimum recommendations for exercise out there. And I don't even want to say that, because I'm not so sure I believe in that. That's just another say, you got to do with this. We have to get at least this much. A lot of my clients struggle with, and this was me, I'm not doing enough. I'm never doing enough. How much is enough? The word enough is a conundrum. So exercise supplements, especially for weight loss, supplements nutritious foods that love us back. Period. You got to choose something that you like, because if you like it, you're going to want to do it. And it needs to fit in your life where it's convenient. I'm a morning bird. If I don't do it early in the morning, it's not going to happen later. But some people, they go right after work because it rejuvenates them before they go home. And power walking, if anybody's like, well, I just don't know how to move my body, I just hate everything. We all walk, right?
Yeah.
And walking is one of the absolute best. It's weight bearing. It actually works the entire body, and you could make it as fun as you want with friends, with headphones, with this podcast you could listen to on your walk. Get 30 minutes in. I like to blast the music, and it just gets us out of that head babble of stress. Mm-hmm. So it's very individualized and unique. And there's way too much emphasis on that for weight loss and for shape changing the body and all of that. And exercise really is a big rejuvenator and a refresher, and it keeps us strong and vibrant mentally and physically.
I love it. So you're no restrictive diets when it comes to weight loss, and no restrictions on the exercise either. It's just do what you can when you can, and not stress yourself out about a minimum. And I really like that a lot. That's really good. And I'm like you, I have to do it in the morning, or else I will not do it at all.
Oh, good. There's another connection we have. But I also want to throw out there, I'm also a certified personal trainer, and I've been teaching group fitness for over 30 years. And I'm here to say that.
That's awesome.
There needs to be a shift, and let's talk about you. That's what I tell my clients. Block the noise. Let's talk about you.
I love it.
The nitty-gritty of some things. And I'm promoting that kind of a shift now.
No, and I love that. And I love that you're like that with the dieting and with the exercise, because honestly, if you can't fit 10 hours of exercise in your week or whatever, like it's not going to happen. And if that's what you're aiming for, you're not going to get it done. So just, aiming for what you can and what works for you, and it being so personalized is amazing. I love that a lot. All right. So for anyone who's listening, again, I really wanted to talk on this topic because as business owners, I feel like not only do we neglect ourselves mentally, we lack self-care, but we neglect our bodies a lot with not eating right. I know sometimes I'm like snacking as my lunch because I did not have time for lunch because I'm so busy. So, this is a topic that I really wanted to discuss on. And so if you feel like Tracy could help you, by all means, reach out to her. Tracy, if you could let us know where people can connect with you. If you have anything to share, I know you mentioned a workbook earlier, anything that you can share that they can, find on your website or wherever, please let us know where they can find you.
Yeah, the quickest way is to go on my website. It's theholisticdivas.com. There is where you can find on the front page the link to purchase my book, which is on Amazon. It's the Diet-Free Diva. I also have a link right there on my front page. If you scroll down a little bit, I have a free downloadable workbook that you can do on your own time to supplement the 5 steps to peace and freedom with food, body, and self that I speak about in the book. So there's a workbook that takes you step by step through these processes. There's a way to book every reader of my book. It's a free one-on-one call with me. There's a way that you can book that. That's my way of saying thank you to the world. And I love doing that and meeting people. And my social media link, Facebook Diet-Free Divas is in there as well. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to connect with you and your audience, Vanessa, and look forward to following you more.
Of course, of course. And I'm going to add all those links for the listeners in the show notes so that they can connect with you and find you there and check out your book. That sounds awesome. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, listeners, for listening. I'm very excited for this episode to be published just so you guys can listen to it. And I hope you have a good one. And thank you again, Tracy, so much for being here. You guys, if you haven't already, go check her out and connect with her, because I think she could definitely help you guys stay healthy and stay fit, and make sure you're taking care of your bodies as well, as business owners. So you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening to the Marketing and Mindset podcast. Have a good one.